Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Nova. It's great to be here. On behalf of the International Savanna Fire Management Initiative and all of our guests, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this country and thank them for their welcome and this opportunity. Some of you know the International Savanna Fire Management Initiative, but many of you don't, and I thought I'd just introduce it briefly before I give the opportunity to as Nova said, some of our guests who are very happy and very happy to be here and keen to talk to you and learn from your amazing experience. But initially, at the outset, the International Savanna Fire Management Initiative was set up in 2012 to help export the amazing knowledge and experience and skills that you're developing here in Northern Australia for traditional fire management around the world. It's a not-for-profit organisation which is based here in Australia, but we're working now in around 20 different countries around the world because there is worldwide interest in what you're doing here. I spoke last to you in 2020 at the Fire Forum, outlined some of that, and it's just been growing ever since. And there's more and more interest because, in fact, what you're doing here is really the main answer for the globe's increasing wildfire. Nobody has the money, the resources to fight fire in a European sense based on suppression anymore, even the richest countries in the world, including Australia and the US. We have to kind of reimagine and reinvigorate the kind of management practices that you have pioneered and redeveloped here along with the monitoring processes. So we're set up to try and allow countries around the world to access that experience and knowledge, so that's the purpose of our initiative, and for us this is one of the most important events in our calendar, to come and see what's going on across Northern Australia, to hear from you directly about what you're doing, because as Nova and Sissy said, the vitality in this room from yesterday was amazing. What's going on and it's amazing, and I know I speak on behalf of our guests from overseas, is that they were completely blown away by what they saw yesterday, and they take this kind of experience really to heart, and will take it back to their countries, and it will reinvigorate their attempts to try and revive traditional fire management practices in their country. Time's short, and I don't want to take up any more time, and so I thought we would just hear from a couple of our guests who could talk about their experience and what they were getting out of the forum today and yesterday. And the first one is Livia from, but I'll let her introduce herself. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So in my country, back there in Brazil, when we get inside indigenous people's territories, we also pay our respect. So I'd like to pay my respect to the Larrakia people, and we're very happy to be here, and thank you for receiving us. Thank you for the organization of the event and for the International Savanna Fire Management Initiative also. So I'm from Brazil. I work in the Institute Society Population and Nature. It's an NGO. It's a national NGO, so it's my second time participating at this forum, and it's my second time coming to Darwin, thanks to Professor Jerry Russell-Smith and to the International Savanna Fire Management Initiative also. So I'm very happy to be here and share a bit of what I've seen so far. So I think it's really important to tell you that what you're doing here and all your experience, it's really like incentivizing and inspiring the whole world. So back in Brazil, this is really the first and the most successful result. So we've come here to learn about 10 years ago, which has been a long time, about 15 people from Brazil came here to see what you were doing. And then this was so efficient that now we started in a small project, so in 3 protected areas in Brazil, in 2014, and now we've expanded this project to a national program where we have more than 120 protected areas implementing integrated fire management. So in Brazil, we call it integrated fire management because of acknowledging people's knowledge and experience in all that's been implemented. So what we've seen here, like what these people that came 10 years ago came to see, they were government people, and what they've seen was respect and listening to what indigenous and local people have to say, and this wasn't really going on in Brazil. So this started something really amazing that we now have like a bill in progress that's been approved. It's almost all approved for a national integrated fire management policy where we'll have all territories being able to be managed with fire. So we had like 500 years no fire policy in Brazil until 2014 when the project started. So now we're going like in a very good way and making sure that people can manage their own country. So I really wanted to say that all we hear here, like yesterday and today, is really important for the rest of the world to hear because we don't have that kind of experience elsewhere. Well, in Brazil, we do have this tiny little bit of 10 years, but it's really important that it gets said and, you know, not only for the governmental people, but the researchers and the people that work, you know, in the land. So I also like to say that we have a lot of challenges. It's not all good. We did progress, like we did go a lot of steps forward, but we still have a lot of challenges in Brazil. We have a lot of land disputes and, you know, land is an issue and people are not really allowed to do their own management anywhere. But with fire, we get this common ground where everyone is looking for like a good place not to have wildfires. So we've seen in fire management a good way to go and a good way to communicate with governmental people and local people and research and all that getting together. We're getting there, but we still need a long way to go. And the carbon market is something that we're looking forward, like as a next step. I know it's a big one and it's not gonna be easy, but we're looking for this next step in the next few years. So yeah, thank you. Sorry for taking long.
Thanks, Livia. And now I give it to a next speaker, Leonel. I apologize, he's from the government of Guatemala, that's my fault. But Leonel, I'll leave you to introduce yourself more properly.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody. I'm from Guatemala and representing the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources. Wildfires in Guatemala, like all the world, are increasing. You know that the temperature is increasing, and also, like all countries, we have no problems, opportunities to solve how to manage wildfires. Ancestral practices are very important. We have almost 50% of the population are indigenous, and they may practice to manage fire. But I think seeing all the presentation like yesterday, we have to involve more to them, and the government has to support more because there are a lot of practices that we can apply to fire management. Yesterday we saw some of them, ancestral practices and modern practices. We in Guatemala has protocols. We use maps of hit points and other tools. We use satellite images to like a early system. And I think that being here is good because knowledge is very important, but to share knowledge is more important because too much people doesn't know how to manage fire. I don't know if we realize that what happened when we have a wildfire in our countries. Destruction of the biodiversity, erosion, and a lot of things that happen in the soil, in the forest, in the basin, and maybe we can measure that, but this is very important to know how to manage a fire. At last, I want to read something. It's a reflection, and this is permaculture is applying indigenous knowledge, spiritually, agriculture, science, and art. Each of these elements reinforces the world view. Nature-based agriculture and following its natural patterns. It is important to encourage permaculture as a tool that integrates indigenous knowledge. Mayan culture use the Mayan calendar in all the activities that they do in the nature. Thank you.
Thanks, Leonel. And now we're going to hear from our guests from Zambia, Francis and Ketty.
Good morning. I'm Francis Mpampi from Zambia. I am the National Coordinator responsible for the Green Climate Fund as well as the Adaptation Fund. My colleague will also introduce himself, but maybe for the sake of time, I just want to highlight that Zambia is a country that is in the southern part of Africa with over 750,000 square kilometers, with the current population standing over 20 million. We have the forest cover that is mostly Miombo, and it is disappearing at a fast rate due to agriculture and also other commercial activities. But then the question still begs to be answered is, why are we here? Is that the reason why we are here to tell you about the fast disappearing Miombo forest? The reason why we are here is to learn and exchange knowledge with what you are going through and what you have built over time. We do appreciate the fact that over time you've learned and have gone through processes, developing systems that are making you able to address the challenges of fire, which we are also experiencing, and my colleague will speak more to that. But it is important to highlight the fact that we have been following the trends, and we working with International Savanna Fire Management Institute, we've come to appreciate that the methodologies that you've developed over time are actually paying off. And we would like to buy into that and see how we can also localize some of the things that you are doing here to benefit our communities, but by and large to make the country become buoyant and also benefit from the natural resources that we have. The effect or the usage of community engagement, I think, is one tool that is very effective from yesterday's presentation, and we would like to take leave from that and be able to replicate that. We are doing the same, but not at the scale at which we are doing. I was interested to look at the number and the size of area that is covered by a few people, the rangers, but also that is made possible because there are other community members that are engaged, and we would like to learn more of that and be able to replicate and ensure that the community begin to realize the benefit that lies in them being active in addressing such challenges. I would ask my colleague to introduce himself and speak to the issues of fire back home, and also what the government is doing and what is in place and what sort of challenges we experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Kedi Mbindo from Zambia as well. I'm coming from the forestry department. It was so nice yesterday listening to the presentations. It was, I could relate very much because we were talking about, I think, the experience that you have as Australia. I think we can relate to it from the traditional aspect in terms of fire management. Coming from the savannas, fire is an important tool that has been used by our communities, and it's very encouraging how the communities here are effectively managing the fires again after the long tradition was lost. I think there's a lot that we can learn from there. This was extremely very good. We have a fire problem in our country right now also, in terms of late dry season fires. And it's very interesting how you are really managing this aspect. And this is one thing that we want to learn, how this traditional fire management is working, and also the market opportunities that are available to actually put resources into fire management. I think this is one thing that we are really happy to learn about, especially yesterday. I was very keen to know how these communities are managing, and it's very good to see that this carbon benefits from the fire abatement methodology is working. It's very good, of course, to relate to this methodology from Zambia, because we have contributed to the science that Australia has effectively used for developing this fire methodology. As early as the 1930s, Zambia was pioneering research in fire management and ecology in the savannah. So it's good that Australia has used much of this to actually come to this far. So we want to come back and learn from the science that was actually pioneered a long time in Zambia. So we come to learn again from you who have managed to use it very effectively to actually get carbon benefits. So we have been developing a carbon project with help from our good partners, the International Savanna Fire Management. We are in the process of now beginning to actually actualize this project. And we are happy to be here because we want to go through the pathway that you've gone to actually be able to get resources for managing fires. We have over 60% of our country forested, and we believe that with the carbon market opportunity, we will be able to make use of these available market opportunities to effectively manage our fires, which have immense opportunities for our local people in terms of the biodiversity that goes along, the tradition that we have had for a long time. I think that's what maybe I could say with regards to one of the big benefit that we are getting from here. We are actually in the pathway that you are already walking, and we would like to learn more from you as we start this pathway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kedi. And now it gives me great pleasure to give the microphone to Jen, who is from the Green Climate Fund, but also is a proud Didac woman from Malaysia.
Thanks, Sam. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this country for welcoming us here today. I would like to thank the organizing committee and the International Savanna Fire Management Initiative for inviting a space for us to speak as well today and share some reflections. I would like to start by introducing myself in my indigenous language. Selamat Onu, Oku Jenipa, Oku Krokong. My name is Jen. I am Malaysian, but I am not from the capital of Kuala Lumpur. I am from the island of Borneo. I'm from Sarawak. I am Krokong Jagoy, and it's a small indigenous group that's one of the indigenous dialects of the island of Borneo. We are descended of warriors and headhunters, and we are what we call shifting cultivative farmers. Our environment, our lands, our territories are mostly, let's say, lowland kind of tropical rainforest. So, what's a forest person doing sitting here in the audience? Why am I here? I'm here because I also work at the Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund, it's the world's largest climate fund, and it's set up through the climate change negotiations to sort of provide channel funds to developing countries so that they can attain low carbon, climate resilient pathways. So in that sense, it was because it was set up through the climate negotiations. It's a fairly young institution. It's about 10 years old. I think it was 2010, 2013. And one of the advantages of having being young compared to the big institutions like World Bank is that we have very progressive policies, cutting edge policies. And one of them is this: we have a dedicated policy on indigenous peoples. And that's where I work in the fund, especially. I am the focal point for indigenous peoples at Green Climate Fund, and I specialize on indigenous issues. And we have in the Green Climate Fund as well an indigenous peoples advisory group. And this indigenous peoples advisory group is made up of representatives, indigenous representatives, just indigenous peoples that are self-selected by the regions in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Caribbean, Pacific, Eastern Europe, and they advise me and the Secretariat and the GCF network on matters in relation to indigenous peoples. And that's important because one of the things that's a focus for us at the fund, but also I think in the larger climate space, is this idea of how we begin to, how can we actually go about including indigenous knowledge and not excluding it? And this has been a conversation that's been happening for a long time. I know that it seems so obvious to everyone in this room, but really outside this space, it's a very important battle, and especially in having to try and what they call operationalize it, actually put it in action, put it in motion. And so that's why I'm here, because it's such an honor and such a privilege to be able to sit here and listen yesterday to all of you, and to all of you talk about how you're actually actively caring for your country. And it's so, it's what I thought was really innovative as well is just the idea that, you're talking through methodologies, but also going through the whole spectrum of very simple practical methodologies, but also taking on very, very advanced, very, very cutting edge kind of technologies as well, and bringing that all together and having that in that space yesterday, and also bringing in cultural elements that were important, like culture, worldviews, and having that there. And maybe not everybody understands every single presentation that was going on, but that was the important thing, because then you get to put it into practice. And that's when you get the very results that you need to see. So that for me was really the sort of the highlight of it, because I think it's very rare to see that in a space. And I said earlier that the Green Climate Fund kind of supports developing countries do this transition, and one of the things that we're very proud of as well is that we're supporting countries like this through our readiness program to take on these kinds of activities. And I think that's important to reflect upon, because again, it shows again the starting to open this space where funders are saying, okay, yeah, right? Let's also talk about how innovation can also include indigenous knowledge. And this has been a conversation that it's way past its time, you know? It's very, because you also think that the only successful countries that will address all these issues are countries that are able to see that they need all forms of knowledge, all systems of knowledge, that all these need to be integrated together. And that you need to give, what I heard yesterday was a very, very, very short but very powerful thing. Just talk to the people who know the country. And that's not, sadly, not very evident, again, outside this space. And it's something you have to really battle for. And I know there are many people in this room that have been battling in the global space for this for many years as well. So I think that having that, you often see presentations like Chrissy does then on the international stage, you know, presenting what you guys are all doing here. But having this opportunity to actually see face-to-face all the communities coming together and sharing was also quite amazing for me. So just in conclusion, I wanted to also say that you're not just doing something that's very successful and rallying your supporters behind you. You're also proof that indigenous peoples can lead in climate action. You know, you're not, many times when we talk about development, when we talk about climate action, and we talk about indigenous peoples, it's always indigenous peoples become the recipients, the beneficiaries, right? And then you have perhaps you can engage in the activity, but you're not actually the center of the activity. Here is a very rare example where indigenous peoples lead and are center of the activity. And I think that's such an inspiration. Because of that, I just wanted to say, as an indigenous person from elsewhere, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. And there are many other guests that we've brought from other countries, as Nova mentioned. Like Jen said, thanks very much for the opportunity. Please talk to us, or we'd be glad to share more knowledge with you. And we're really relying upon you in the future because, as we've heard many times, this is a knowledge-based kind of idea, which requires exchange, face-to-face contact, real practical experience being exchanged on the ground. And we're looking forward to doing a lot more of that in the years to come. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm glad to hand the mic back to Nova. Only 2 minutes late.